Okay, we are back with our building, crafting, survival system. So we have our wood and our stone, and we were working on crafting. So if we click on a crafting thing, we get this child. We also need to get what this child is trying to build. Right, so this is, we'll reuse that variable, recipe name. So once we get that recipe name, we need a grand list of all our recipes. Right, so we have, let's see, we have all of this stuff that populates our inventory. And we have this stuff here that goes through our recipes, which is array recipes right there, and it's a game object. Wood floor recipe. So for simplicity's sake, we should probably change this name from recipe and just call it wood floor. Have this name match what comes up. There's ways around this, but this will make this part a lot easier, right? Because if we say, okay, so this name, and if we array contains the recipes contain we're getting the name. We just want to know if the name is there. Value we're at that index. Okay, array contains this wood floor. Okay, you know what we need? We need some sort of master list, I think, is what we're gonna have to do. If we get, because this guy, where's our recipes? These are game objects which control that. Unless, let's see if array list, see if the array list has something that's, array list contains name. Let's check that. List. So we have array list contains right at the bottom. Alright, so that would mean we would need to convert this guy to to an array proxy. And we'll just use that same name. And we will pre-fill it with the same guy. And okay, so the recipes. So we would need to change this first one, array list get next. Right, so we're going to replace this guy to current recipe to create and the current index. So we need that. It has that same loop, and then the done and current index. It's a type game object, this particular one, and current recipe to create. Alright, now we can get rid of that one. So it's doing the exact same thing, but now it's using this array list compared to the normal array. Which, I mean, array lists are better. They're more dynamic and better to work with. So now we can, does this guy contain this name? And index of right, so now, well, it should give us an index of 0 anyways, but we can check that by contained index. Let's give this some crazy value then. And now if we hit play and we drag our player over, I'll just grab some of this, I don't know why, we craft, and if we hit this, okay, so we have recipe clone, we have the title, we have wood floor. So wood floor, does it contain? It contains it at index 0, which should be right? Wood floor is at index 0 because they are spelt the same. Wood floor compared to wood floor from this. So this spelling is the same as this guy here. Said now, if you want to make them different, you can, but then you got to trim strings and change things, and this makes things a lot more straightforward. So once we have that data, we know where to go to get what this guy needs, right? So this guy has an FSM named recipe, and it has quantity, and it has the type, which is our string, wood. So we need to check. This is where things get kind of nuts on crafting systems and building systems. This is arrays working with arrays in comparison to other arrays working in. Yeah, it's just a mind twist at this point in time, right? So if we don't want to do a finished, we should do a, I don't know, an item found event. Yes, we'll just say continue, right? Because I mean, it should find it. I mean, if it's here, it should be here. I mean, this should find it. If it fails, you can throw a debug log or something here saying, hey, something went wrong and these things aren't matching. So if it finds it, we need to get his index, right? Our contained index, and we need to get an item of recipes at the contained index. This is a type game object now. So once we have that, we then let's just finish this so it's just a nice clear. Once we get that, we need to array get next. No, we want to so he has his own array, so we need a FSM array. So we could just get it from, which will end up being this guy. We need type store value in, it's an array, array type in question. It is type string. Right, so that's going to be get FSM array should be on recipe in question, that guy. So we're going to copy his values, and then while we're here, we might as well make another array because we're going to need it anyways. And this one had, that's recipes in question, array quantity in question. That's a type integer. So now we can get FSM array, also of the same thing, recipe quantity this time. All right, quantity in question. Change that back over to that guy. So we copied over all the values from whatever recipe we're looking at. All right, so now we have those values. Now, the other thing we need to do is now we need to copy values or compare for each of these in unison with these, compare to these to see if this is even possible, right? So I'm just going to keep doing these little mini states just to hopefully keep things a little more clear. All right, we're copy recipe arrays. This one is get recipe. Get the button clicked recipe name. Recipe was clicked on. Sorry, so now we've copied the arrays. We need to now for each, right? Array, and we're just using normal arrays? Yeah. So the arrays in question, array get next. Alright, so we're going to loop through the type in question, and this is going to have its own loop and its own done, and it needs the index. We can just reuse current index. Result is, well, we can use recipe name, that's fine. So as we loop through, we need to, what do we need to do? We get this recipe name, and we need to come over and we need to array get, let's copy this guy, let's bring him back over here, because we also need, we don't need to copy the array get next. We need the players, and the player has array lists, so array list get, so of the player, well, I don't know if we have a variable, if not we'll make one. We need to get this guy, oh no, we don't want just a get, we want to copy the whole thing over. Or, well, no, I guess we always could use get. Sure, why not? Let's, nope, we can't use get, because they may not be in the same order. Array list contains, we could use that one instead. We could do that, right? So if we get a recipe name, which will be, say, or the thing it needs, like this will be wood or stone, we can turn around and be like, okay, on the player, under names, it is a string. Do you have recipe name? Now, do we have a player variable? No, so let's make a player variable. Game object, player. And I'm just going to literally just drag him in here. So this is now a player. Right, so does it contain this? And if it is contained, player contained index. So if this is true, no, we don't want that, is contained, then true, or false. We'll just run those. Right, so okay, so we get all the stuff. We get the data. So we say, okay, so we want the first item in the recipe list is, say, wood. So we get the name wood at this index. This is very important. We come over here and we're going to get the player's, all of his stuff, and make sure it contains, if it contains wood, then we need to know how much. So that's true. If it's false, then this whole thing's just going to fail. Then there's no point continuing on anything else, because if he doesn't have wood, don't build it, period. Right? So that'll be the ultimate fail. So if it contains, or he contains this item, we need wood. So if that's true, now we need to array. I almost should have just went with array list for everything to make this easy. So array type in question. So we want the array quantity in question now, right? So array get, which is quantity in question at the index of the contained, no, of current index. Of the current index. And this will be needed quantity. And then we also now need a array list get. This will be of the player. Reference is now the quantity. And this index is going to be at the player contained index. And this one's a type integer. And we need to get those. That's of the player. So now we have both those datas. Now, and compare. So if the player currently has quantity, if it is equal or greater than the needed quantity, we will continue. If it's less than, we'll just do a false, I guess. And the false is, okay, we failed. You cannot build whatever you're trying to build because you don't have enough parts to it. If you do, we're just going to go back. Okay. Then at the very end, right, so this is just a check. We're going to loop through everything and make sure you have everything. Now, if you do have everything, then down here is where we'll actually build it. Oh, and then we got to subtract integers, right? So we're saying you need, say, 10 wood. So if I hit play, and I take the player and I grab 5 wood, let's open that up. And we click on it, it should fail. Right, so he came over, we seen the wood, he went and got the wood at the proper index, he came over and said, okay, so the array quantity in question is 10, and the needed quantity is 10. No, from the array in question. The needed quantity is 10. The player has 5, so we have failed. Okay. And if we hit play again, and we now go grab a couple of these, and now I hit create, he's gone to the done loop instead, right? He's gone through, he says, okay, you need 10, you have 20, so you're good. Let's go over here. And he looped through and said, okay, we've gone through all of the recipes needed for this wood floor thing, and you've passed, so we're here. So like I said, it's a And it's kind of a confusing thing, and it's not over yet because we still have to subtract things. But we don't want to subtract things right away, because what if when we're building, right, you pop up your little thing and you're going to build a floor and you decide to cancel that. Well, if you cancel it, we don't want that to cost materials, right? So we're not going to subtract the materials until after we've created the floor and we've placed it. As soon as we placed it, then we'll subtract the materials. Let's see what we're doing for time. 25 minutes, okay. We can do a little more. So we have that far. So what we need to do, now that we have this check to see if we have everything, is we actually need to create the object. So we need a wood floor to begin with. We don't have one. So I'm going to create an empty, zero mode, and I'm going to create another folder here, and this will be building parts, and yeah, call that good. So this is our wood floor, and he doesn't look like much. So what we need is I'm going to create a model for him, and I don't have a model. Well, I mean I do. I guess I could use all sorts of different stuff. I suppose that's fine. I was just going to use a box and scale it, but I guess it really doesn't matter on this. The most important thing, and it isn't needed, but it makes things a lot easier, is if all of your floors are the same size, right? All of your walls and your floors, like they use the same kind of dimensions. That makes things a lot easier. Now, this part isn't also necessarily needed. There's ways around it, but for simplicity's sake, this anchor point, I want this to be in the middle, so that when we're ray casting and we're finding where it wants to go, I don't have to add an offset of the middle to here. I can just set it, right? So if I move him, not apparently by 2, let's go 1.5. Maybe that might be too far. 1.25. Then he's a square, so probably negative 1.25. Right? He's now, I mean, his anchor point's still down here, but technically if I look at the model, his anchor point's there. Okay. So there is my floor, and he sits actually pretty much on the ground, which is good. Now the idea of a snap point is if I create an empty, and we'll call this snaps, or sockets, we'll say, we can now create an empty, and we need a layer. We'll say this is a socket layer. Right, so he's going to come over here and we'll put him on a socket layer. Now we could use different sockets, and it's an easier way to do things. So let's say foundation. So he can be a foundation on the socket layer, and let's call him foundation. And that's what things are actually going to snap to, right? So we know at 1.25, and not the scale, the position, that we sit right on the side. But that also means at 2.5, that would be the middle of another piece. And if I add let's use a sphere collider, mark it as a trigger, doesn't need to be big, just has to be something. So now if I do another one and mark him at negative 2.5, I should get the other side, And if I put him at 0 and do him at 2.5, so 0, we get that side, and negative 2.5, we have that side, right? I have all 4 sides. Now those are for foundations. Now we would do, say, another one here, and let's say it is a wall. Wall socket, and he's going to be on the socket layer. But the wall we don't want sitting way over there, right? He might be 1.25, right? Now with this one, I'm also going to use its rotation. So I want its Z to be, say, facing, oh, let's do this part so we can see where it's actually going. Facing the middle, I think. I think that would be a better idea. And let's go negative 1.25 and turn him to 90. And do him, let's go 0, 0, and go negative 1.25. And flip all that to 1.25 and 180. Okay, so now I have, oh, I didn't give these guys a, oh, they need the wall tag, and they need a little sphere. Can almost move those up. Well, we'll play with that stuff after. All right, so now I have these different sockets. Ooh. On our floor, and our floor itself has a collider. Okay, good. I don't want to use this guy as the main piece, because I mean, really, if you have to do any scaling, anything underneath it gets all screwed up. So now I mean, I can scale this thing all I want, and if I add anything down here, it's not going to screw with the scale. The other thing is now, if I want this to be, oh, I don't know. Let's see. I guess it really doesn't matter, right? Like I could come in here and drop another one, copy and paste, right? And I could take this and delete that guy and stick this guy in his place, rename this, and I got a whole new floor, and I don't have to worry about screwing around with these sockets, right? So it's kind of nice when you have this little model thing. So I'm going to go up to building parts and prefab him and delete that. Okay, let's go back over here. So now we actually have a floor that we can make. Actually, you know what we should do on top of that? We should give this thing an FSM, and let's do color. Okay, so let's mark our materials. I was going to do this in the master thing, but this might almost be easier to do in these individual things. So we have material good, material bad, and this particular guy also has a model. And what else does this guy need? We have a collider. So he has 3 states. We have good, we have bad, and we have build. So we also need build material. So instead of running through a bunch of things, we are going to get material right off the start of this guy. Might be better to make a variable so we're not, just easier to do. So we're going to get his material to start with. Now, if we good, bad, and build. Let's move the bad to the left. Because after we get the material, we're just going to go start on bad. So bad is set material. Let's just copy that 3 times. So I need one in each of those states. So this one is, okay. We will just make my part. Put that in the index. Part. Alright, so his part is going to be that. That's what we're focusing on. So set material of the part to material of the build material. Copy and paste, and of the good material. Of the part to the bad material. There we go. So now we can just tell this thing good, bad, or build. The other thing we can do is set property in the build on the let's rename that collider. That's going to kill me if I don't do this. Get component. This will make the system a little more flexible too. On the part, get collider. Okay, so now we have the collider. So we can technically, like these things is now just a collider. You don't technically have to fill this part in. You can just name it. And then that's going to be our piece. Nope. No, whatever. So now we can set property on our collider to is trigger is false. Right, because we'll have a trigger to start. And then I think over here, make sure we're good for time, should almost call it good there, is where we're going to do our checks. We're going to run a variable. So we need a bool is good. Right, so if we're in here, set bool. You'd also use state names for this too, I guess, but I happen to like this method better. Copy, paste is not good. Right, so when we're going to be placing it, we need to know if it's good or bad, right? So this guy here, he's going to have we need more ecosystem stuff. There's different ways we could do this too. We could do I could just use collider set as trigger. Event once per object. Inside collider info might be, let's see, that box, we might need that one. We'll take that one. I'm going to get that one. Because I think when we're in the build thing, we're going to adjust that collider just a bit, so it's above the ground just slightly. And then when we're done, we'll place it back down. So, collider, inside collider info. What does this give us? We have a target collider. Well, we just happen to have a component for that. Oh, is if this object is inside. No, we don't want that. We don't want that at all. So box size. So we're going to need our size. Oh, I should grab that. Oh, okay. We'll do that in the next video, I guess. But we need to more or less constantly raycast the exact same size and shape of this box, more or less always downwards, maybe minus a tiny bit, so that we're not hitting the ground, even type of idea, constantly. And we need to check for anything there. And if there's nothing there, we need to be good. If there's something there, we need to be bad. Type of idea. But we'll cover all that in the next video. So until then, we'll see you in the next video.